In my last video, I showed you how I was able to transition from selling my time to selling a system. And we won a 2 Comma Club award for making $1 million. Now I want to share with you how you can use a simple whiteboard to turn strangers into raving fans who wants to buy your system. I have created webinars since 2017. And even though I was able to make $2,675 on my first webinar, I always struggled to keep them profitable. It took so much time and energy to put it together. Normally from idea until I actually launched my webinar, it typically took about a month or 1.5 months to put it all together. So it was a lot of work, and I think that's the main reason so many people are struggling with getting their webinar launched. So one thing I learned was when I joined Dan Henry's Elite Mastermind program. This was back in 2020. I already created a bunch of webinars, but I always kept struggling to keep them profitable. But when I joined Dan's program, I wanted to know exactly how he was able to make a lot of bookings from his webinars, because I was still struggling and I couldn't even get people to book a call with me. So when I joined, the first thing he told me was skip the slideshows and do a whiteboard webinar instead. I was like, whiteboard webinar? Like, how do you create an entire slideshow on a whiteboard? It didn't really make sense to me. But when he further explained exactly what he meant, it made so much sense to me, because a traditional slideshow presentation, typically you have 180 slides or something like that. There's so many things that can go wrong. There's so many things that can break when you have this complicated process, right? What I learned with creating a whiteboard webinar instead was so much simpler to put together. It was faster to launch because I didn't have to create all of these slides. There was not a lot of graphics or countdown clocks and all of that. So the only thing that was left was me and the whiteboard and what I said, right? The message. And that's the whole point of a webinar. If you want a webinar to convert, you need to focus entirely on the message. Make sure your message is right before you even think about slideshows, okay? So the cool thing about this whiteboard was that I could just do it right away. I had the idea, like the outline, and then I just started to talk. And I did it in front of the whiteboard and just wrote keywords or draw simple drawings so people had an idea about what I meant, but nothing more than that. It was really basic. And the cool thing about doing something basic is that you will immediately know if the main thing, the core thing in a webinar, for example, it's the message. So you just need to know if the message is correct, if people actually connect with your message. And that's what you do with a whiteboard webinar. I decided to create this whiteboard webinar, and I was struggling so much to get people to book a call and actually start making money with the webinar. But when I turned over to a whiteboard webinar, I made 35 times as much money with a whiteboard webinar than I have done with my second best traditional slideshow webinar. 35 times. And this whiteboard webinar crossed $1 million. So I want to show you exactly what I did, how I structured my webinar, so you can do it as well. But remember, it's not a slideshow presentation, it's in front of a whiteboard. So let me show you. A webinar contains a few pieces. And one of the pieces, the main thing, is your method. So the method in this case is your system, okay? So we have the method. And in this case, it's the system. The system that you use to get your customers, okay? Then after you explain the system, they might still have some fear or some concerns left about, like, that's cool, I understand the system, but I have this internal fear. Internal fear. So it's about me. Like, I don't think I'm able to execute on this. So even though your system works, I'm not sure I'm able to close the deal. I'm not sure I'm technical enough. I don't know if I can write the copy. Whatever it is, like an internal fear about themselves. The external, I'll talk about an external fear. So your customers have some kind of external fear. They point at that. They point at something else that are holding them back from succeeding. And your job is to tell them a story about how you or somebody else overcame the external fear. So let me put it together here. So we're going to tell them like about the method, about the internal fear and the external fear, but we do it through storytelling. And we have 4 stories we tell in a webinar. The first one is the idea. So this is how you found the system. How did you discover this secret system, right? That's the first story you tell them. Then you transition into the method. Now you're going to tell them the system, the story behind the system on how to use the system. how you use the system. So the first one is the idea, like how you found the system, how you discovered the system, and then how to use the system. When you tell them the story about how you use the system, so basically a case study from you using the system or some of your customers are using your system. Okay, so basically a case study. Then you tell them, show them a framework, a simple framework on how to use it. So you do this at step 1, step 2, step 3, and so on, right? So you just tell them the story about how you or somebody else have used your system, and then you share the framework on how to use the system. So this is the first one. Then we transition into the internal fear. So the internal fear, I'm not a copywriter. So you tell the story about how you are not a copywriter yourself, or some of your customers were not a copywriter, but how you overcame this fear, this problem, right? So you share the story, and then you share a framework. And if it's about, for example, copywriting, the cool thing about AI today is that we can use it as a part of our framework. So you can, for example, say you found this way that AI can help you create copy, and then you found this specific prompt, AI prompt that you used, and it works so well, and now you're making so much more money. So you share that that discovery, and then you share like step by step how to use this prompt. Okay, so this is going to be your secret number 2. And then you share the third one, which is about the external fear. So the external could be, yeah, okay, I understand the system, I understand how to use the system, I believe I can do it, but this external fear is holding me back. I don't know how to drive traffic, I don't have time for this, or to set it up, or whatever the external thing, the time, the system, like there's something out here, outside of my control, that are holding me back. This will be the third secret. Okay? So these are the 4 stories. So after you have told them the stories, now it's time to transition into the close, into the sell, into the actual offer. So you're going to create an offer, and then it's not just a random offer with random stuff. This is an offer specifically designed to help your customers overcome every single objection and concern that they have left after you told them the stories and shared the frameworks. The first piece is you're going to give them the system, like this social media AI system. You give it to them. Like this is the first part of the deal. The next thing you're going to give them is something that helps them overcome the internal fear. Then the external fear. So you're going to share like some piece that will help them overcome the external fear. So if it's traffic, I don't know how to drive traffic. This is my secret method for how to, or my course or whatever, to drive traffic through social media or through paid ads or whatever it is, right? Influencer marketing, whatever it is. So you share like, this is one of part of the offer, and then you can add some bonuses at the end. So this way you will have like 1 to 3 additional bonuses to get people excited and actually want to take the step and book a call with you. Final piece, after you gave them the call to action to book a call, you want to go a little deeper here. So I did this, I made my webinar, and it was really difficult for me to get people to book a call. So I gave them the call to action here, like go book a call, and then I ended the webinar. Then I watched one of Dan Henry's webinars, and he did the same thing as I did. Basically the same type of webinar. He gave the call to action here, but then I noticed that he had a little additional part of the webinar here. So this is what we call the close. And it was a 20-minute pitch where he just handled all the different objections, just all the questions that they had left in their mind, that he just overcame all the concerns. So I decided to transcript the entire thing he said, like line by line, word by word. And I did this, and I ended up with 7 pages with everything he said in these 20 minutes. Then I changed the copy, changed the thing here, the transcript, into my language, into my customer avatar, into my concept. And then I shot a video and added it at the end of my webinar here. So I added the close here. Just pitching again, like making sure people understood how powerful it is, what they will lose if they didn't buy and didn't book a call with me, and so on. And because I added this piece at the end, it was the same webinar, I just added this to the end. I went from almost nobody booking a call with me to almost a fully booked calendar, just from add this close at the end of my webinar. So make sure you don't just give them a call to action, book a call. Make sure you just keep talking and tell them why this is a good deal. Show them case studies, like show them why this is such a good deal and why they are leaving so much money on the table by not doing it. And I promise you'll get more people to book a call with you. So now you know how to use a whiteboard to turn strangers into raving fans who wants to buy your system. Now I want to share with you how our lead nurture engine gets or nurture every single lead in your system, so they are excited about watching your webinar and actually consuming the content that you give them. So let's unlock the next video and take a look at that part.